That's what we want to hear.
That's, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Just waiting for our commissioner to set it up. Then I'll begin today's readings on lesson 16, which is propaganda.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
I've invited a couple of guests who hope be able to make it. Uh, but both of them had the same name, so if you see them, you're not seeing double.
Yeah, the more the merrier.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, today's topic is quite a powerful one.
Yep. The power to manipulate media. Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Yes, indeed. Propaganda, propagate.
yeah, yeah. It's a important lesson that we often overlook. Um, yeah, they some people. I think I've got a guy named Eric Foner or someone said that propaganda doesn't deceive you; it gives you the information to deceive yourself. That's
Yes, sir.
how,
Yes, sir. I think
how-
we're ready to go live, President General.
oh, okay. So that the games begin.
Great Garvey Day, brothers and sisters. Today we shall be reading from lesson 16 from an African course of philosophy, and the title is Propaganda. Propaganda means to propagate or to make known extensively some particular phrase of human intelligence. The desire is to convert or influence the people to the acceptance of the truth of that particular intelligence that is sought to be spread among them. Propaganda can be true or false in its origin or intent, but it is always directed at the public for the purpose of winning the support of that public to the sentiment expressed in its propaganda. If you hate a man, giving him a bad name, well, may explain one of the purposes of propaganda without the truth behind it. Nearly all organized efforts have a system of propaganda to convert people to their principles and get them to support them, even though there may be no merit behind it all. Propaganda is all around you to make you buy a special brand of cigarettes. Although no good, but advertised to be the best to make you drink or use a certain brand of tea, telling you of its wonderful qualities and its everlasting benefits when there is absolutely nothing to it, and so on. Before the war of 1914 to 1918, the Germans were known to be the most cultured and scientific people in Europe. When the war started, the other nations, in order to discredit the Germans, had to hold them up to world ridicule, and the contempt of civilization released the propaganda that classified the Germans as Huns and barbarians. This also reveals how organized intention can be carried to the public for public acceptance without thought. The press, cinema, pulpit, schoolroom, and all propaganda agencies for one thing or the other. The pulpit carries religious propaganda. The schoolroom carries educational propaganda. The press carries out written propaganda. The platform carries out oral propaganda. The cinema carries out demonstrative propaganda. These methods have been devised by the white man to spread his ideas universally among men. That is why he is able, in a major sense, to control the minds of the people of the world. The white man is the greatest propagandist. He fully and completely realizes the value of propaganda. Therefore, you must organize your own propaganda to undo the propaganda of other people. If their propaganda affects your interest, the Bible is religious propaganda. The school book is literal propaganda. The novels and books you read are also literal propaganda. The, the novels and books all calculated to bring about certain results beneficial to the propagandist. Never forget that you are surrounded by a world of propaganda, all dressed up or cooped up to suit a doubtful public that is not careful about what it digests from without. The artist is also a propagandist. He paints pictures to convey the idea he wants to impress upon the non thinking and doubtful public. The sculptor is also a propagandist. He chisels figures and portrays them to suit the aim or purpose he wants to achieve. The pictures of Madonna and Christ and of the angels are painted portraying a white face so as to inflict upon the rest of the world the belief that God, the angels, and the Holy Family are all white, as well as Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve were black. They also paint the devil and the imps of hell black to impress upon the world the belief that all that is black is evil and all that is white is holy. Tear from your walls all pictures that glorify other races. Tear them up and burn every bit of propaganda that does not carry your idea of things. Treat them as trash. When you go to the cinema and you see the glorification of others in the pictures, don't accept it. Don't believe it to be true. Instead, visualize yourself achieving whatever is presented, and if possible, organize your propaganda to that effect. You should always match propaganda with propaganda. Have your own newspapers, have your own artists, have your own sculptors, your own pulpits, your own platforms, print your own books, and show your own motion pictures and sculpture your own subjects. Never accept as your subjects of another race, but glorify all the good in yourselves. Keep your home free and clear of alien objects of glorification of other races. Otherwise, your children will grow up to adore and glorify other people. Put in the place of other heroes the heroes and noble characters of your own race. Never allow your children to play with or have white dolls. It will give the idea of having white children themselves. Give them the dolls of their own race to play with, and they will grow up with the idea of race love and race purity. Watch the newspapers, magazines, and journals daily for propaganda against your own race or your institutions, particularly against the UNIA. Rush into print immediately and defense of your own institutions and organizations from any attack. Never allow an insult propagated to go unanswered by you. Be ever vigilant to down anything by way of propaganda that dishonors and discredits you. Don't help the other fellow to carry on propaganda against yourself or your race. All propaganda comes from the arranged desire of individuals and not from a race as a whole. It is the thinkers and the leaders who originate propaganda by insisting on its wide distribution. They get other people to think as they like. Don't accept the thoughts of others through propaganda unless it coincides with yours. Don't follow the band down the street because it plays sweet music to the propaganda of the circus manager. He may lead you into the circus tent and take away your pocketbook. That is to say, don't get on anybody's bandwagon because he may drive you to hell with his sweet music, like the Pied Piper of Hamelin, who played his sweet pipe and led the rats out of the city into the sea and drowned them. Propaganda organized by someone else is always calculated to take advantage of you. Don't help them do so. Always asks, what is this about? What is the object of this? Who has sent this out? What is he aiming at? Will it hurt me and my race? Is he trying to get an advantage over me? It is honest, it is true. If you ask these questions of all propaganda that comes up before you swallow it, you will be able to take care of yourself. Don't sing the songs and repeat the praises that glorify other races. Sing your own songs and recite your own praises that glorify your own race. For instance, it is foolish for Negroes to sing or say, Britons never shall be slaves, when they themselves have been slaves and are likely to be slaves if they don't impress upon their minds that they, as Negroes, will never be slaves again. Sing therefore, niggers never shall be slaves. Be careful how you sing religious hymns that have been written to dished up and made popular by white writers to glorify the white race in the name of God. Take advantage of the silence of God to impress inferiority upon your race, such as the great white wings of angels, the great white throne of God. Wash me white as snow. All these are damnable, vicious forms of propaganda against the black race. Though my sin be as scarlet, they shall be whiter than snow. Wash me in the blood, and I shall be whiter than snow. All these things reflect the propaganda designed by the white man to glorify his skin and his race as against the black imps of hell and the black devil and the black pearl of doom. The idea of the white man making black a symbol of mourning and sadness is just to show the extreme of the purity of whiteness and its joy and happiness. Reverse this. If possible, teach the Negro that when he is mourning, he should wear white, and when he is happy, he should wear black. This is meeting propaganda with propaganda, the hatchet with the hatchet, the stick with the stick, and the stone with the stone. Every everything on earth is man's creation. So out of man's propaganda and the mind he has created, his special systems of opinions to meet his design. Therefore, customs are based upon the acceptance of propaganda skillfully engineered. Have your own propaganda and hand it back down through the ages. Write your own poetry and recite it. Compose your own songs and sing them. Write out your own interpretation of the scriptures and history and teach them as far as the interpretations of others affect your race. Challenge the thought of any book of other literature that dishonors or discredits you in any particular way and give it the widest publicity so as to undo the harm intended. Remember always that an error not corrected ultimately becomes the fact. Never allow false statements or allegations against your race to become current and pass into history as if they were facts. War. War is the hellish passion of men let loose in opposition to man. It sums up the cruelty of man towards man. It always aims at the stronger, taking advantage of the weaker to gain that which could not be acquired otherwise because of the failure to use human reason. War comes when men fail to adjust their differences with reasoning. Always be prepared for the exhibition of the vilest passions of men in war. Men are always warned against his fellow man. It started with Cain against Abel and has continued down through the ages and never and shall ever be so as long as man remains an unreasonable creature. No generation has shown that man intends to become wholly reasonable. Therefore, in a time of peace, prepare for war, so as not to be caught unprepared by your enemy, who will naturally be stronger if he's prepared while you are not prepared, in using his implements of war. War is not a good thing, but man is also not a good being. You must expect war from dispositions. All things are fair in war to win the advantage over your enemy. When there is war, use all implements at your disposal to defeat your enemy. Do not discuss terms while you are warring. Discuss them after you are victorious. When war comes, all resources of intelligence and wealth, all utilities are placed at the service of those who conduct the war to make them victorious on behalf of those from who they are warring. Therefore, have in view the obtaining and controlling of all such resources, factories, and utilities that may be necessary as ammunitions of war. There may be they may be righteous wars as well as unrighteous wars, depending entirely upon the civilization that makes the war to defend itself in war. It may be war to put down human abuse in favor of human virtue. The war makers have always justified war in some way or another. If you become engaged in war, always have justification for your engagement. If the war is not yours, get something out of it before you go into it and complete it for the good of others. Never go into war foolishly. Never sacrifice your life without good results for your cause. War is the best time to take advantage of your transgressor, whoever he may be, wherever he is engaged in war and he promises you nothing, you will never get anything from him in time of peace. Therefore, during the time of war, make your bargains before you help anybody else in war. If you if if you are suffering the abuses of others, there should be a threat of war against them for some other source. Encourage it because it will be your chance to force a square deal. The more other people war amongst themselves, the stronger you become if you exercise good judgment. Divide your enemies so as to gain your advantage. Always keep them divided so as to be able to gain the advantage. Your only hope of escaping the hate and prejudice of other people is to keep them severely occupied with other problems. If they have nothing else to attend to, they will concentrate on you and your problems will be aggravated. While others have gone to war, try to be at peace amongst yourselves to gather the spoils of war. Never talk openly to your enemies, but be prepared for war. If you talk it, they will become prepared, waiting for you. Keep the other races divided and keep fighting each other as much as you can so as to take advantage for yourself. If they have no problems to occupy their time with, they will turn to you and turn on you. Keep keep them occupied otherwise. The more confused they are worrying over their troubles, the more time you will have to get out of your trouble. And that concludes lesson 16 on propaganda. I will open it up for you, Mr. President General, to give your thoughts and opinions on this chapter here, lesson 16 on propaganda.
Yes, sir.
Mm.
This has to be my 16th favorite, tied for 16th favorite lesson in the School of African Philosophy. Uh, and that's why it's lesson number 16. Um, Propaganda, man, that's a powerful tool. I could talk about that one for hours and days and all evenings, weekends. That is a tool that not enough of us fully understand and appreciate how deeply and how pervasive it is every day, all around us, everywhere, in ways you probably wouldn't even have thought or could imagine. We're inundated all day, every day with propaganda and never even realize half the time. Many of the decisions that we think we're actually making are not even our own decisions. These are decisions that others programmed us to think we're making for ourselves, because that's what propaganda is. It doesn't deceive you. It teaches you to deceive yourself into thinking you're in control of your life, where actually you're being dictated to and programmed to do those things normally against your own will. That's why they say history is nothing but a lie that's been agreed upon. You know, if you inundate people with enough lies, it'll take them forever, and you'll intellectually exhaust them trying to um, exercise their creative thinking and deconstruct your lies and reconstruct truth. Eventually, they'll just give in and say, "Well, everybody else saying it, everybody else agreed to it. Well, I guess it must be true." But no, that's not how, propaganda is designed deliberately for that purpose. Malcolm used to say, "So propaganda is a for your allegiance. It's a war for the mind of man. It's a way of people manipulating you, but and it is not always negative. I must say that too. Is Oscar, not Oscar, Louis Mashaw back in Harlem, one of the former heads of the ANIA, the African Nationalists in America. He had formed a bookstore, the National Memorial African Bookstore in Harlem. He used to call it the House of Common Sense and the home of proper propaganda, where he used to say the house was packed with all the facts about all the blacks. And there he made sure he used propaganda in a proper way to win our minds back to an allegiance for ourselves and to a love of self and a doing for self. Um, so we would coin certain sound bites and phrases, buy back or put it black. I mean, buy black or put it back. Things along that line. But in order to win you back over to your own mind and not just go around willy nilly doing things, because as Dr. Carter G. Woodson said, you control what a person thinks. You don't have to worry too much about what they're going to do. They're going to do exactly as they're programmed to do, and they're going to do everything that's against their will by automatic, systematic remote control. So us being first of all aware that there's a propaganda warfare in all areas, and Mr. Garvey pointed them out perfectly. But there's so many even more areas. Every time you look at a dollar bill in America, that's propaganda war. That's patriotic propaganda warfare. You're seeing all these dead presidents. You're seeing their faces associated with power and wealth, and that's psychological. Why don't I see a picture of Mr. Garvey's face on that bill? Why am I not thinking about black economics? Every time you read that Bible, even see it on the shelf, it reminds you of certain thoughts and ideas. That's one of the oldest propaganda tools that's in existence, along with the Quran and certain other things. It's been pushing a certain ideology or mindset for years. Every time you hear a police siren going down the street, that's propaganda warfare. It's trying to get into your psyche and have you in a state of paralysis and fear, wondering if you're going to be next, what's going on. All these things are propaganda. They're psychological warfare. They're designed to put you in a certain state of mind. Everything educationally. The advertisements on the commercials, all sorts of tools have been used and formulated and planned for decades on how to make people think a certain way. In fact, somebody once said that propaganda is to a democracy what violence is to autocracy, something along that effect. Or to a monarchy, I think it was. But yeah, I mean, it's a tool that can definitely be used against you, but it also can be used to counter propaganda that's been used against you. So that counter propaganda is what we need to focus more on. And one person who would never be fooled by propaganda was Marcus Garvey, because he was a master printer at a young age, and he saw all manner of propaganda being used by other folks against us. So he himself learned propaganda at a young age, and began to utilize it for the best interest of his people. But I remember he once said that they'll have to remake the universe to fool me. In no department of learning can they close my eyes. I'm ready for all their tricks, sociologically, anthropologically, economically, industrially, commercially, politically, biologically, ethnically, philosophically, and religiously. They use propaganda to throw dust into the eyes of the world, but they shall never blind me in the storm. And this is the mindset of the most honorable Marcus Garvey, as he used his propaganda tools to win us back and sell us to ourselves. And we certainly need to learn to utilize those skills as much as humanly possible in everything we do. Surround ourselves with music that speaks to our interests and to our needs, and not that crazy, wild, go out and do stupid stuff kind of music that people seem to think is funky. We don't even need to start moving our feet to the rhythm till we know what the lyrics say. We need to really be mindful of what is being fed into our psyche, because that's definitely how they manipulate and control the world, subconsciously, ways you wouldn't even notice, just like, subconsciously, your body is telling you a whole lot of things at this very moment. In the moment, not only listening to my voice, but what pictures you have on your house around you, the weather outside. I mean, hell, the temperature inside your house. All these things are being read by your mind subconsciously at the same time, and processing all kinds of thoughts and ideas and information around you that you may not even be aware of. Everything is registering, and so the way people speak, how they present certain things can make you favor them or become disfavorable toward them. So as we begin to reach the people and organize the masses in the collective best interest of our race, we certainly need to be mindful of every aspect of propaganda, how to use it, and how to counter it when it's being used against us, and help us become more mindful, particularly the youth, because once they get inundated with a certain amount, it's almost impossible to extricate them from that mindset they have. Oh man, you only die once, man. Hey, you live, you got to do this, you got to do that. And, if it ain't about that money, ain't about this, don't make dollars, don't make sense. And they get all these little things in their head, and they think that's the way of the world because they're young and impressionable and they don't know any better. They don't have experiences to balance their thinking, like we older folks may have. But yeah, we don't get our youth with enough propaganda, that righteous propaganda. Like Muda Baruch, I was thinking about that song, Marcus Garvey Rise Again, Take Me From We Evil Then. And this, songs he targeted toward the youth. Now Jamaica's even school system are targeting the youth with Garveyism. Oh, that's the only thing that's going to protect us in this crazy world. Mr. Garvey used to say popularly, propaganda has done more to defeat the good intentions of races and nations than even open warfare. But with that, I ain't trying to hog the show. I pass the mic back to you, Honorable President.
Yeah, thank you, President General, there for your insights. I agree with everything that you've said. And just to add to it, like, we live in such like a media age, like from the Instagrams to the Facebooks to the TikToks, and all these things are influencing the hearts and minds of the populace. So this is another very important chapter that we need to study and take notes on how the propaganda machine works. Like, from when I was a little boy, they tried to like separate us from like Africa and make Africa seem like the dark continent, and all the adverts we would see on TV would be like with children with pot bellies and flies on their mouths and hungry, hungry. send money, send money, send money. And that was the image they would always portray over here in the West world, in the Western world. When I was growing up, like Africa is the dark continent, poverty, war. But then when we lift up the veil, we see that these Europeans are over there trying to grab up everything under the soil. They're the ones going there the most, trying to set up shop, trying to get the minerals, the resources, and the people. And this goes a true testament to the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey's quote that the white man is a great propagandist. He fully and completely realized the value of propaganda. Like, and to counter that, as the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey said, yeah, we must create our own propaganda. We must have our own platforms, our own media, our own Negro worlds, as he done, to spread our own propaganda and turn it around and not let them paint the picture. Another key takeaway when he said, tear from your walls all pictures that glorify other races, tear them up and burn them. Every bit of propaganda that does not carry your idea of things, treat them as trash. So, us over here, the image of the white Jesus, I think that the image of the white Jesus and the Jesus at the Last Supper, this has been in all of our parents and grandparents' home, that powerful image. Those of us that were from the Christian persuasion, like that image of the white Jesus, painting the white man as God in your brain to keep you submissive and subservient and propagate the idea of mighty whitey, all dominant, all conquering. You know, we need to have our own heroes on our walls, and if it's gonna be a Jesus, make it a black Jesus, a strong Jesus. You know what I'm saying? And obviously, when we when it speaks to our children playing with white dollies and all these things and blue-eyed, blonde-haired dollies, we must create our own dollies and make them play with their own dollies and to boost the self-esteem of our children. Like it's very important because from a young age we get programmed. The programming just kicks off from the get-go, from when you hit nursery, go to school. Most of our teachers are white because we have not really built our own kind of institutions, schools and these things. So we are getting the white doctrination, the white teaching, and we need to shy away from these things because again, it's making us subservient to their agenda. You know. Also, when he goes, it's just the second point again. Like, have your own newspapers, your own artists, your own sculptures. Visualize yourself as great. This Marcus Messiah Garvey, the Honorable, was ahead of his time with the visualization of your own heroes, making them great, all black, everything. It's truly amazing, truly amazing. And
Yeah, yeah,
okay, you wanted to say something, President?
yeah, yes, sir. Yeah, I was just saying. Yeah, I agree. You notice if you look at the um, Mr. Garvey when he talks about things that he always talks about what we should hang in our homes. That we ought to hang up photos of some of our heroes. Certainly there were always pictures of some of the parent body and UNIA being sold on Negro World pages. You've seen people advertising framed portraits of the African fundamentalism. You can get a copy of the Declaration of Rights to hang on your wall. These are implements that you can put that not only can be decorative but also reaffirming to your cultural and political philosophy that were recommended that we surround ourselves with constantly, so that we can become inundated with that in the world that's trying to constantly bombard us with their own propaganda, the think in our own against our own best interests. So hanging these items around the house, believe it or not, will certainly do a lot subconsciously to you as well, and to your children, so that they don't grow up with that. In fact, that whole black doll baby, white doll baby was so effective that a young man by the name of Kenneth Clark, who was who grew up in Harlem in the Garvey movement. His mother used to be an officer in the local division. Kenneth Clark later joined the Brown versus Board of Education lawsuit in America against discrimination in the school system. Showed the power of that propaganda by having the children, black children, play with white dolls and with black dolls and see which one they preferred and why. And because he knew that growing up in the Harvey movement, having access to these dolls and noticing how children, felt differently toward them, so this was something that was effective and still has lasting effect. The images and things we play with, as well as the, like you mentioned, the religious propaganda, the having the certain images in our homes. When you see this black devil and all these dark, murky characters as being evil, and everything that's right and bright is white. Everything, the angels are all white. The great Almighty God in the universe is white. Like anything religious ever came out of Europe, other than some decadent religious figures they call gods that are doing all kinds of perverted things to people. But if you look at the yeah, so if you look at things like the hold on one second. I'm talking to someone at the same time. Hold on a second, brother Shock. Yeah. The if you look at these religious figures, you look at how we actually deify their whiteness and demonize our own blackness at the same time psychologically by having these things, even down to, as Dr. Francis Crest probably will point out, the devil's food cake versus the angel food cake. The angel food cake is going to be, white, and the devil one is going to be black. Everything that they can make negative, even as you were talking about, brother president, about um, the Tarzan image, and seeing the children with the TC flies and the perforated bellies and starving, and everything in Africa is negative, and everything in Europe is high tech and civilized, and everything's going well. When you got some of the dirtiest, nastiest places in Europe you ever seen in your life, filthiest countries, as Donald Trump would call S-hole countries in Europe. Melania came from one of them. I know he knows what I'm talking about. Yet we think of Africa so dirty and wretched, and we just all sitting around waiting to die from TC flies and all, and starve to death, when the reason many of us are starving is because of their economic policies and domination and subjugation for so many hundreds of years that put us, the underdeveloped Africa, when we were thriving and doing quite well. So they got a lot of nerve to use that propaganda against us and thinking we too stupid or too naive to understand it. But yeah, certainly we have to be mindful of all the imagery we have in our house. And Mr. Garvey made a good point when he mentioned that the press, the cinema, the pulpit, the schoolroom are all propaganda agencies for one thing or the other. And seldom do we, think a simple movie where we got this white hero coming to save the white woman from the big black monster, or what's that, Planet of the Apes, a King Kong, these types of movies. We don't see the psychological propaganda that goes into filming certain things, or talking about certain black Sambo things in the schoolroom, or how happy we were in slavery and all this kind of dumb stuff that they'll find a way to edge into our books, so that we think, oh, it wasn't so bad, and we were singing songs, and I see us celebrating, Christmas, and Hell, we had our own house in slavery, so many of us don't have a house today. So I guess it was pretty good for us. If you listen to that crap long enough, and you're not critical enough, or your critical thinking gets overwhelmed, you'll start to actually internalize and believe some of that nonsense about yourself and about your race so much that you'll begin to hate everything that's you, and love everything that's them. They'll teach you to love your enemies, or love your enemies and hate your friends. So we have to be constantly, relentlessly on guard against all these different forms of propaganda.
Yes, absolutely. The propaganda machine is not a joke. It will have you thinking black is white, white is black, up is down, yellow is green. Like the propaganda machine is, yeah, we got to counteract it with our own propaganda, as we were saying. Then also, as propaganda is war, he does go on to talk about war in this chapter and how you must play your enemies, divide your enemies against each other, then play down the middle. You know, he goes on to say that divide your enemies so as to gain your advantage. Always keep them divided so as to be able to gain the advantage. And I feel that is a tactic that the white man or the European has played ever so well against us, and we kind of keep falling for that okie dokie trick. So we definitely need to be more wiser in that aspect. Then he goes on to say, and he talks about all types of wars, in it. What's considered a unrighteous war and a righteous war. There may be righteous wars as well as unrighteous wars, depending entirely upon the civilization that makes the wars or defends the wars in war. So the power of the media, and when we see how he has used the media over here to fund his war propaganda. It is truly amazing. Like when they say, "Oh, we found weapons of mass destruction over here, and we need to go in there to go and spread democracy among the people because the people here are oppressed. So we need to go and show them who the real killers are." It's truly amazing. Like I remember when I was a younger man, and it was I believe they wanted to invade Saddam Hussein, and the media machine was working in overtime, like to say that there were weapons there, no weapons were found. Then what's his name again? I believe Dr. Kelly, who had the dossier on that there were no weapons, no weapons of mass destruction that Saddam Hussein was holding, was found dead in the forest because he went agraying and wasn't following along with the propaganda. So again, to the war section, when there is war, use all the implements at your disposal to defeat your enemy. Do not discuss terms while you are warring. Discuss them after you are victorious. So that goes on to say certain things, strategies, war plans, we need to keep in house. We don't need to be vocalizing and giving up the strategy to mighty whitey. I see sometimes we have a tendency to, over talk too much and give away ideas and plans, and before you know it, the phone is bugged, the house is bugged. These guys move in the silence and the violence of propaganda. So sometimes we need silent weapons for silent wars. Under- Understand what I'm saying, people? And with that, I'm gonna pass it over to you, Mr. President General, to give your thoughts and opinions on the war piece.
Yes, sir. And I think we have a guest that should be coming on momentarily. If you can look out for Brother Shaka. But yeah, certainly during a time of war, you need people to be patriotic. You need people to embrace your ideas. In fact, one of the tools that I remember first when I first started studying propaganda was a simple thought that people use. Is something that always bothered me, but I didn't know why. And I really started thinking about it and finally eventually figured out how ridiculous it sounded. But it's not until you realize how ridiculous your thoughts are that you begin to realize how deeply you can be inundated, yet naively, receive propaganda and think that you are somehow, creating your own thoughts. But they used to say this back during the war with Afghanistan, not Afghanistan, with Saddam Hussein. Many people in America didn't think it was a just war. Matter of fact, no, it was Afghanistan after 9/11. Not a soul from Afghanistan bombed the Twin Towers. Yet everybody wanted to invade them and try to make justifications for it. Same way, like you said, they tried to make all kinds of justifications, but found no weapons of mass destruction with Saddam. But everybody kept saying that, oh, we don't agree with the war, but we support the troops. We don't support the war, but we support the troops. And that was the right patriotic thing to say. But then I started thinking about it. How can you not support, or you can say that you support, you don't support the murder, but you support the murderers? Well, how does that make sense? I mean, how is it that you can use this tricky logic and make people seem like they're, very, discriminating with their support? They want to support this, but not that. If it's wrong, it's wrong. If you got somebody go out there torturing and murdering and blowing up thousands of people like that, then it's wrong. It's wrong. So it should be something that we should be a little more discerning about repeating. Also, like I said, during the wartime, there's a lot of manipulation of the press to make you think one way or the other. And sometimes they want to keep you preoccupied with a particular thought or focus on the wrong questions. Because questions, predetermine the answer. So if they don't want you thinking about this, they'll have you thinking, focusing on that over there. It's a classic distraction or misdirection that they use in propaganda war. And so you see how, like, during this Palestinian Israeli war, people asking you, which side are you? You pro-Israel or you pro-Palestine? As if that's really the question. For an African, it's neither. For us, that's North Africa. That's not no Middle East. I don't even know where the Middle West or any other middle place is. There's no such thing as a Middle East. That's North Africa. They're in our land. Both of those people are invaders. The Arabs as well as the Europeans who came from all over Europe and took over the land from the Arabs. So far as I'm concerned, I don't care nothing. I mean, I'm not going to ignore the wars that's going on in Ethiopia, the wars going on in the Congo and other places. And you want me to be, in South Sudan, etc. You want me to be apathetic toward my own people and sympathetic toward one of somebody else's people. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. If anything, I'm going to be apathetic toward you who invaded my land and killing each other over it. I hope both of you win, and I can get my land back. I don't care nothing about their struggle and their fight. I don't care more about us. Now, I'm not saying I'm inhumane and that I don't want, that I want death, and I'm not saying any of that. But certainly, I'm not going to focus more on your people dying down the street and ignore my own family sitting home dying. I'm going to focus on, my people first. So sometimes during these war times, boy, they flood. And I mean, flood people with propaganda. That's the thing that got made Mr. Garvey so great, is that he went up not against commercial industries or went up against maybe one even particular country when it came to propaganda. He went up against military intelligence operations all over the planet. Some of the greatest, brilliant thinkers in all these European countries trying to stop him from all, from every walk of life and all the newspapers. They got their little minions up there trying to say certain things to show that we don't agree with that old Marcus Garvey, and he's not one of us, and he's a buffoon, and they make up all kinds of names. The preeminent scholar of all, Mr. Du Bois, who clown that he was supposed to be the greatest intellectual of his age, and somehow all he can do is name call, nanny nanny boo boo. They want to call Mr. Garvey all kinds of silly names. This is his form of propaganda. And he actually deliberately utilized the Crisis magazine, which I call the Identity Crisis magazine, because he didn't know who he was, and didn't have a singular consciousness. All he had was that double agent, double conscious. But this propaganda war that WEB of confusion, or Mr. Webb of confusion, I call him, had was he actually agreed with to offer his newspaper, the Crisis magazine, is a tool of espionage against black people. He openly signed a contract with military intelligence because he wanted a job as a captain. He was going to get commissioned to be a captain in military intelligence division, the Negro subversion division of military intelligence, and use his paper to propagandize against blacks and have them, the same blacks that got lynched in uniform in Texas, the same blacks who saw National Guardsmen and soldiers sitting around watch while they get thrown into burning buildings during the East St. Louis riot. These same, institutions, W.E.B. Du Bois used his paper to say, hey, we ought to go join America and put aside our differences with this country and fight, together and help, give democracy to Europeans and others around the world. Well, we're not even enjoying it right here. But that's the kind of insidious, crap and propaganda they try to wage against us. And if we're stupid enough to follow that, we're going to become, our own worst enemies and not understand why. So we have to be totally discriminating during wartime, particularly. That's when they fully inundate us with a lot of this stuff. Yet at the same time, as the folks in Syria right now are showing, you can wage your own warfare. You can, on social media and otherwise, you can wage a TikTok revolution if you know what you're doing. If you can counter their propaganda with more intelligent propaganda and reach your people, even if you got to use music and hip hop and or whatever you got to use, cultural arts, you can reach the people, and you can win, and you can undo or reverse the damage that some of them have tried to do, as we used to do on the street speaking back in Harlem back in the day. We utilize any tool at our disposal to try to convey certain messages and ideas to our own people, because we know they were surrounded by propaganda, and many of them again were not as discriminating against the information that was being pumped to them regularly, and they weren't. They were a little naive to some of the reasoning and the objectives of some of the propaganda. So we utilize our skills, they utilize theirs, and may the best man win. And I'm betting it's going to be us if we utilize the gospel of Garveyism, which we know to be the gospel of success. Did Brother Shaka come on the call yet, Mr. President?
I don't believe so, sir. We need the commissioner to let him in. Let me leave that with me.
Okay. Yes, indeed. Yeah, yeah, definitely. And part of what Mr. Garvey also said was that propaganda is not only or education, I should say, that we get the information from propaganda. It's important not only what information we take in, but also what we take out. And same way we were talking about placing pictures and images on our walls that support our worldview and our philosophy and our interests. We also have to tear those images down that don't support our worldview and our interests. And a lot of time that may mean old blue-eyed Jesus got to go. I know some of us been seeing that image since we were babies, and particularly in Africa and some certain places around the world. Boy, they love the blue-eyed Jesus, and nothing is more powerful a symbol than old blue eyes, and he's plastered on billboards and all over the place. You can't get enough of him. Every movie they can, they putting him in there and making you cry tears when he gets crucified. But Jesus wasn't in Europe. He hid in Africa, and a blonde, blue-eyed kid hiding in Africa is not going to work too well. Hiding from old Herod. So that whole theory of him being this European, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. He was in North Africa, and he was hiding amongst the North Africans, and the ones who came to kill him were the Romans, the Europeans. But somehow we tend to think that they are our heroes, and then somehow we, the ones who the book spoke about, the one who began with the first civilization and the first people on the planet. Somehow we, are the cursed, the children of Ham, and all this kind of nonsense. It makes absolutely no sense. But if you let them, define the narrative and define the terms of your argument, then they'll begin to win and win you over against your own interests. And you really got to religiously protect yourself from that. Particularly like I was just thinking about some music I used to listen to back in the day that I swore meant one thing, but it actually meant another, or something that I wasn't really thinking about, but subconsciously was kind of getting me to think a certain kind of way. And the more you listen to this stuff, not just even the gangster stuff, but how you treat women, how you thinking some kind of glory in being a pimp, or some kind of craziness about women, and we don't need no man, we can do this and we can do that, and I can have another you in a minute. And some of these songs, they sound fun and cute, but they also tools of propaganda against the black family. Sometimes against having your own business and promoting other products. They seem simple and innocent, but it definitely been tools that have been planned and plotted against us for a long time. So I mean, it's something that we have to really be extremely mindful in protecting ourselves from. At the same time, we need to reverse the curse by putting up images that celebrate our greatness, and teach our impressionable youth, the uncorrupted youth, as Mr. Garvey used to say, who are our future. To teach them at an early age, African fundamentalism. To teach them how great to Songley Overture or Sojourner Truth or Harriet Tubman and other great people were, certainly the most honorable Marcus Garvey, as opposed to some of these other figures that we grow up thinking, Lord Kitchener was so great, or George Washington, or one of these other Europeans was the greatest ever produced, or the greatest artist was, Michelangelo, or Shakespeare was the greatest writer. Not hardly. Be serious. Even reading the King James Bible, knowing that Shakespeare wrote it, it should make you a little, make you wince a little bit to know that the same man who wrote the Bible, or had commissioned the Bible, also wrote a book of witchcraft. Or to tell you a little something about that Bible you're reading, and how he put his name in the book, in the Psalms, during the year he was born. I mean, and in 1611 when it was commissioned, he had the word shaken spear, corresponding with the 46th word of the 46th Psalm, and from the beginning to end and all that kind of stuff. That's propaganda war. I mean, there's so much, and even the sculptures you see. Mr. Garvey talked about, some of the statues, the imagery, and how they celebrate certain people and things that we pass by every day and never even question. But just to see this great hero riding on a horse coming to save the day, in our mind, it looks nothing like us in the neighborhood that we may sometimes be the predominant figures. We the ones that fill this neighborhood, but every street name, every store, the liquor stores, everything, they just flooding us with, get this. You want to be cool? Try this. You should do this more often. Don't think about this. Do that. And it's almost like that old movie. What's that movie? I think it was called V, about the aliens. But it was a movie where if you wore these glasses, you could read propaganda as it was written. So you look at a billboard and see a woman sitting on a car, and then when you put the glasses on, it says sex, sex, sex. Um, ego, money, and so you're like, huh? And you take it off, and then all you see is the woman, half dressed, sitting on top of a car, trying to make you look cool, with a guy in the background smoking a cigarette. But it's imagery like that I wish we had those special glasses that we could be able to read what the true intention of all these images we're flooded with are telling us. They're flooding our psyche every day.
Absolutely, absolutely, President General. And I don't know if anyone has come across this book about hustlers and con men by J. Robert Nash. So in this book, this is propaganda at its finest, brothers and sisters, because this book goes on to call the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey the grifting black czar, Marcus Garvey. And I will read a couple of sentences from it so you can kind of get the grift of what the white man is dealing with when he does his propaganda machine. So it starts off as this: the grifting black czar, Marcus Garvey. Just as Miller played upon the ethnic dupes of his community, realizing their grudging confidence in one of their ilk could be established only by operating on their level. Marcus Garvey preyed upon his fellow blacks in one fabulous swindle after another. His message was simple and his role exalted. He would lead 7 million blacks back to Africa and total freedom for a price. A Chicago dentist, one Howard Given, had promised fellow blacks the same things a few years earlier. He intended to ship blacks to Dakar and Caribbean liners in thousand-person contingents, but suddenly decided to march all the blacks in the Midwest to the sea and commander ships in the eastern port. As Chicago police attempted to disband Given's group, Archer Avenue, the dentist, who by then had dubbed himself Prince Arim, drew a sword and pistol and charged his officers on horseback, killing two or three of their number. Garvey arrived in the United States in 1914 from England, where he'd received an extensive education. Setting up himself in Harlem, he announced to the black community that he was the provincial president of the African Republic, admiral of the Black Star Line, president general of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League, Inc., commander of the nobles of the Sublime Order of the Nile, Knight of the Distinguished Service Order of the Ethiopia, and representative of the black people of the world. This title burden Hustler preferred the role of admiral and donned a garnished uniform, replete with medals, ribbons, gold, button, and chevrons. He wore a plump Commodore's hat on most occasions, and his game was to sell his fellow black stock certificates in the Black Star Line. It was this shipping firm, Garvey pointed out through advertising and countless meetings, that would provide transportations for America's black community back to the promised land. More than 40,000, mostly uneducated blacks, purchased stock in the non existent line to thwart any government move to charge him with fraud. Garvey purchased an unworthy and see unworthy excursion boat tied to a Hudson River pier. It never went to sea. If it had, in all probability, it would have sunk immediately. Garvey held torchlight meetings 3 or 4 times a week on the boat, his full collecting speeches accompanied by blaring jazz bands. To this swindle, which netted the con man about $500,000 over a 6 year period. Garvey added the scheme of the Negro Improvement Association members, almost 4 million of them forked out over dues of 35 cents a month in return. Garvey promised to set up a lustrous black kingdom in Africa. Of each monthly due received, Garvey pocketed 10 cents, a staggering 400,000 a month. The millionaire's lifestyle became expansive as his titles. Garvey purchased several mansions, dozens of open air carriages, and 100 elegant groom horses to pull them. More than 1,000 tailor made uniforms glittered with gold, brain, and newspapers and magazines that the latter used to spread his scam even wider and deeper into the black communities across the face of the land. Needing more money for his blossoming enterprises, Garvey announced an additional £1 across the board charge per annum of members. Those who did not pay promptly would be eliminated from the rolls of the future ship sailings to Africa. The suckers happily sent in their dollars. The power Garvey wielded on behalf of American blacks was so awesome that in 1929 he was invited to speak before the League of Nations, and this the hustler did with great flair, full of demands for his future African republic. While Garvey wowed European capitals with his global plans for black, investigators for the U.S. Post Office began to prepare a mail fraud case against him. Their work was rewarded in 1924 when the sharper was indicted and tried. He acted as his own lawyer in a carnival like trial, which resulted in his conviction and 5 year prison sentence in Atlanta Penitentiary. Before surrendering to federal custody, Garvey, free on a massive bail, hustled up enormous appeal funds at his elaborately planned fourth annual International Congress for Negro Peoples of the World. He regaled his hooting throng with promises of riches to come and took in tens of thousands of dollars from Marx. He ceremoniously appointed dukes, duchesses, knights, and ladies of the Black Republic. In Atlanta, Garvey was all but forgotten 2 years. His publishing and steamship empires, hallowed as they were of assets, collapsed. His associations disbanded. Upon his 1927 release, the Admiral was deported to Jamaica, the land of his birth, where he spent time in lonely squalor. He had stashed several million away for such a fate. It suddenly occurred to Garvey that European blacks needed a savior, and he was off on a heavily financed tour of the continent, capping his crusade with a speech at London's Albert Hall, where he expected 10,000 persons to attend. But like the reaction throughout Europe, the lecture was a fizzing flop. Only a few hundred curious people showed up to see the colourful Garvey at the end of his talk. No applause of support hammered into the Admiral's ears. One spectator loudly demanded his money back and shouted to the stage, "You're a crazy loon." You see what I've read there, brothers and sisters? You see how how mighty whitey will mix truth and lies and mix it and have his own agenda. I know President General, you can pick apart piece by piece everything I've just read here with all the lies and propaganda that this book by J. Robert Nash has just explained. That's why we need to read our own books and be in charge of our own stories. Because if you don't know, you don't know. But I'm gonna leave the floor for you, President General, to pick a piece of what I've just read.
Oh, I can stay there for hours on that topic because I mean it's so many things. That's why I have issues now when people ask me for a good book on the topic of UNIA and Marcus Garvey. And honestly, if it's dealing with the history, there are virtually no books that I can really say are good. I can say some are better than others. Certainly Dr. Tony Martin has some better some of the better books on Marcus Garvey. But anyone that I can really say is good, I can't find one. I mean, none that I would, out of 100, probably rate over an 80. I mean, they're terrible. They're embedded with lies and misinformation deliberately, and some that even meant well were so ignorant of the real history and didn't flush out the real truth in history that they really continue in certain lies so much that again they become truth. So you look at the whole, their whole attack on Mr. Garvey back in the day. This was a deliberate, planned, organized, orchestrated attack by J. Edgar Hoover and some of his informants who were also, newspaper editors. Many of his informants who were literally paid FBI, or not FBI at the time, but BI informants, were absolute people who were part of this colored intellectual clique. That the some people mention the Sigma Pi Phi, some people call them different other things, Boule, etc. They were even part of what's this, the American Negro Academy and certain other institutions, but it was an actual deliberate group of organized people who controlled their messaging and actually put out certain propaganda deliberately against Mr. Garvey and everything he did, propaganda that made no sense whatsoever. And if you were silly enough to believe it, you'll start to wonder if Mr. Garvey himself was sane enough and was he really tricking and deluding people. They called his, shipping line a con, like he was a fraudulent operation, as if he wasn't putting all his money into it himself. Anybody that's running fraud on somebody to invest in something worthless are not going to sink their money into that worthless thing themselves. It just doesn't make even any kind of sense. Same thing, they talk about his ships were in disrepair when he bought them. He bought these old busted ships. Well, that's what the purpose of him buying some of these used ships was for. If you get them in a certain state, all you do is repair them. Which is what same thing if you're going to fix up a house and convert it. You don't say, "Oh man, he bought this house," as if he didn't know it was in need of repair. I mean, that's why he had to professionally refit it and approved by the shipping board. I mean, these things are just common sense that people would know if they knew any better. But if you just told, "Oh man, he was just tricked because he was just so stupid, he didn't know what a good looking ship was like," and people just played him out of his money. No, it didn't. That's just a bunch of damn lies. Same thing about this African kingdom. Mr. Garvey talked extensively about governing the ideal state. He wasn't big on the whole kingdom and monarchy kind of structure. That's why he had later some political differences with Emperor Haile Selassie. But he wasn't in fact no African kingdom. I'm talking about he's born to go somewhere and build some kingdom. That didn't make any kind of sense. He was going to build a nation, or he was going to start with some settlements that were going to be an industrial and technological spark to Africa, and hopefully from there liberate some nations from in slavery to the white folks. But the white folks sitting up telling him, "Oh no, he ain't. He's just going to drag y'all kicking and screaming back to Africa." With that whole silly label to conjure up fear in your mind that you're going to be snatched against your will and dragged and thrown in a pot of boiling oil and baked and eaten by African cannibals. This is that kind of silly nonsense that they conjure up in their head and try to put images in the newspaper and make you think, oh, you better be scared of that Marcus Garvey. He joined the KKK. How the hell is a Negro going to join the KKK? I mean, just because he was bold enough and the only leader in the country strong enough to meet general to general with a military, group like the KKK, and he had enough members of the Legion that he had no problem meeting, sitting down, general to general, and discussing the rules of engagement if they were going to have some kind of beef. But in the end, they found out they had, more in common, that we weren't tripping off of following those snow bunnies, and they weren't interested in our women, so we had a lot in common. We weren't interested in going to the toilet with them, unless we're going to flush them down with the rest of that stuff, and they weren't interested in going to the bathroom with us. So we had some agreements that we can respectfully disagree on whatever else. But as long as we had the understanding, hey, we were good. And because he sat and let the KKK member interview him, all of a sudden he now himself is a member of the Ku Klux Klan. The ridiculousness of that propaganda. The whole piece about him being a lawyer, his own lawyer, and it was a clown show. They write about that. It was a clown show, but it was the judge that got clowned. And it was some of those government witnesses that were the ones that got clowned. And Mr. Garvey, who asked at least 3, if not 4, Harvard-trained attorneys to represent him, and each and every one of them for a crime that he not only did not commit, but couldn't possibly have committed. Each and every one of them encouraged him to cop a plea. How are you going to cop a plea to a charge that happened, alleged crime that happened when you weren't even in the country? And how is that so difficult that a Harvard-trained attorney can't represent you? And how is it that each of those Harvard-trained attorneys wind up getting promotions to be an assistant district attorney or state's attorneys for the United States government after they tried to deceive him into taking his plea? That's because Mr. Garvey was the threat to them. His fighting for African independence scared them so much that they used every tool in their disposal to try to destroy him and discredit him, and therefore decentralize his movement and destroy the ideas that he represented and ideals that the UNIA fought for. But these, they had a judge who was a board member. He was a constant contributor, heavy contributor to the NAACP, which was a rival organization that the UNIA condemned openly, an organization who sponsored the Pan-African Congresses that condemned the UNIA or condemned the Marcus Garvey. So you have this open enmity between a judge who's, NAACP, a Zionist, fighting with Marcus Garvey, and somehow he didn't recuse himself of that process. That one thing is a clown act. The same judge was, during the court cases, he actually, when Mr. Garvey was drilling or cross-examining one of the witnesses, had the audacity to say sustain. And everybody in the whole courtroom looked at that fool like he was crazy. Sustain what? Nobody makes an objection. Well, I'm making the objection. Well, the judge can't make an objection. You need the prosecutor to make the objection, dummy. And well, I'm sustaining anyway. How you gonna sustain an objection that never even been made? I mean, this is the clown act that they talking about that they don't put into the reports. Same thing with the witnesses trying to pick fights in the middle of the courtroom with Marcus Garvey. I mean, this is the clown act. Yet somehow when he take the case on and do so well in representing himself, that the judge later had to come to the jury and coerce them into finding him guilty of something. I don't care what, you find him guilty of something, or you're going to waste all the court's money, and we may, have to go back to this whole trial again, and blah, 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 blah. And they were just trying to press the jury, which 9 of the members of the jury later came back and said they didn't think he was guilty anyway, and that they were pressured into doing that. Some of the witnesses came out and told openly that the judge, the prosecutor told us what to say and gave us the dates and times. They convicted him of an empty envelope. I mean, this was so ridiculous. Yet he somehow is the clown, but he's the hero of the show and the martyr and the one who shouldn't have suffered any of that over this ridiculous charge. But that's the only thing that they think they could find, something that they engineered themselves, because Agent 800, the black FBI agent, was actually circulation manager for the Black Star Line office. So if anything would have went out, from an FBI agent, it would have came. And of course, he gave an affidavit, but didn't testify that he was an agent. Benny Dancy, an informant, didn't testify that he was an informant. It was just so much craziness. But again, Garvey's the buffoon and the fool in this craziness. But anyway, things like that. Even his speaking engagements. A lot of times they would put injunctions on him in different cities and block him from speaking, claiming he was going to start a riot and all this stuff. You had people like W.E.B. Du Bois going around telling people that Marcus Garvey wants to kill all white people, and then telling them, that you don't want to get on the Black Star Line. You're going to fall to your death. The ships are raggedy. They're made of wood. And then, of course, he had to go back and recant that and apologize and, rescind the article. But, I mean, this is the kind of propaganda that he was up against. How are you going to sell tickets or fares on the Black Star Line? Everybody hearing that, the ships are raggedy and you're going to die and all this kind of crazy stuff. I mean, it's just ridiculous, the war of propaganda that the man endured, and even historically still having to endure. If you think about the exoneration campaign today, I mean, they still haven't let it go. They still want to deny him a basic exoneration despite overwhelming evidence and proof that he was innocent of this alleged crime that he was convicted of. They refuse to do anything. In fact, if you look at the history of the U.S. Pardon Attorney's Office, normally when they investigate a case for pardon, they'll post the findings of their investigation openly, and you can look at what they decided to do. But there's only a few certain select cases where they refuse to publish or declassify their findings per the investigation. And the oldest case is the case of Marcus Garvey. That's the oldest case in the Pardon Attorney's Office that they've refused to share the findings of their investigation. And that's because they know absolutely overwhelmingly proof positive that he was innocent. And they don't want the public to know about it. So deliberately they keep it quiet. But this is the kind of thing when we say that the propaganda is still going on. Yeah, Hoover may not be here, but they don't want you to know what actually happened, what went down, and how successful the UNIA was despite every effort in the world, millions and millions of dollars being blown all over the place to try to stop this one man from doing what they can stop him from doing, never could stop him from doing. And eventually, not only did he spark the Harlem Renaissance, but he sparked the African independence movement, the Black Power movement, in some ways, the Black art and culture movement, and every other positive, constructive African nationalist movement that ever existed. Anything that came after him. He was the progenitor of the golden age of universal African nationalism. And, thank God that he understood the propaganda war and played it like the strongest general we've ever produced on a level that many of us will never even understand or even begin to understand. But yeah, certainly the war is still on. I guess we still didn't get our brother Shaka to come on the call yet. So yeah, I was just looking at some other parts of Mr. Garvey's message to the people when he's talking about keeping your home free and clear of alien objects of glorification of other races. Otherwise, your children will grow up to adore and glorify other people. Well, at that time, there wasn't television in the homes. Certainly not social media and TikTok and all these other forms of media that we get now. So, but had they been around, Mr. Garvey, I think certainly would have pointed out how dangerous and how damning it is for your children to glorify some of these cartoons they see on the television screen. These cartoons that are really glorifying ancient European gods, whether they openly admit it or not. Now, in the case of like a Wonder Woman, yeah, she's the daughter of Athena, and Aquaman's the son of Poseidon, and all these sorts of things. And they're born half men, half gods, or half women, half gods, and have all these magical powers, and they can always save the day. So you grow up with Superman, which means supreme man or above, a normal man. This is white supremacy 101 in his red and blue uniform going to save the day. This man in a bunch of tights dressed like a woman flying around with his cape or gown on, saving the day with people. There's a lot of things about what you put in your head at a young age, glorifying some of these people and things. We need to free our minds of all their kind of vanity and glorification, because it definitely has an effect on us. Not only, like I say, the black dog and white dog, but certain other ways. If we internalize and want to be just like these Europeans, and so much so that again, all the enemies they fight look like us. Whose side are we going to be on when something breaks out? We're going to see. We're going to be on the side of Superman and Jesus, or we're going to be on the side of those villains and evil black people who do all these criminal things and all of their TV shows. So I mean, being mindful of that means we have to produce content that reflects pride in our own identity. We can have our own black heroes. We can have more shows like Blade, where most of the demons are white folks coming around sucking the blood out of black people, which is somewhat based on the truth and reality, not just fiction. But yeah, to have some of these blood sucking Europeans as the enemy and having a black man as the savior to come and help strengthen and protect his family and his people. That's the kind of shows we need to start producing more. Kind of like the one out of UK with the Rap Man, the Supercell. Love that show. I can watch that show every day, over and over and over again. But that's the type of proper propaganda we need to inundate ourselves with all day, every day. And like I say, even the rap songs, if they talking crazy, put them away. If they talking like the last poets, um, blessed are those who struggle, oppression is worse than the grave. Better is to live like a noble man than live and die a slave, or something like that. But all these
Yes,
types of
indeed.
positive, positive reinforcement music. That's what we need to hear. Like Kendrick Lamar and Marcus Garvey got all the answers. Even though Jay Z hit a song, Mr. Carter. Now they compare me to the Marleys and the Marcuses Garvey. I don't know if I compare him to Marcus Garvey yet, but he's a decent businessman, and he has some constructive lyrics amongst the other stuff. But yeah, I mean, there's some artists that we can show more support, for, because if you look at it, some of the early jazz, some of the early bebop, some of the R&B. In fact, it was Duke Ellington that said Mr. Garvey was the bop and bebop. There was some early jazz artists, the Oscar Petersons of the world, certainly Wynton Kelly, and even today Marcus Miller, whose family was part of the African Orthodox Church and the Garvey movement, related to some of the former international organizers and presidents of the division. A lot of greats who influenced the music back in the day. They were singing songs of praise to Mr. Garvey. They had Wilma Houdini, who did the song "The African Love Call," was praising Marcus Garvey. He said, some people say give him Booker T. I say give me Marcus Garvey, and he explained why. That Booker T was for class education, and Marcus Garvey was for African liberation and universally, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, but to sing those kinds of songs, the redemption song, emancipate yourself from mental slavery, none but ourselves can free our minds, and man to man is so unjust, you don't know who to trust. Those are the Garvey Act type songs I like to surround myself with. Also listening to some of the UNIA hymns that are certainly powerful, and if they sang well, it can be quite entertaining and soul sustaining at the same time. So anyway, but I yield the mic back to you, Honorable President. I don't want to be the motor mouth of the group.
No, go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir. You're hitting all the right topics, crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's, and I like the way you took apart the propaganda piece I just read, because you know a man as powerful as the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, a black man holding the line, keeping the line, holding the honor code, is always gonna have a slew of haters writing ludicrous stuff about him. You know what I'm saying? They need to vilify him. So we shouldn't relate to him, aspire to be like him, or even greater than him. Like they always paint these kind of guys as the boogie guys, the boogeyman. Oh, he's a con man, he's a hustler, he's a grifter, he's a swindler. Oh, he's a madman. All these buzzwords they try and use to disassociate ourselves with him. So I like the way you spoke there, President General, and with dispelling all the rumors and coming with nothing but the unadulterated truth, Mr. President General. Where where is brother Sharak? He
Oh,
can't.
you don't see him in queue now?
No, I don't see him in queue. We need him to come on and espouse his wisdoms and knowledge of the ages.
Okay, I'm gonna see if I can get him back on there. Um, maybe he hang up after sitting for a minute. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yep.
But anyway, as I was saying, in it, like the propaganda, this lesson is very important. It's a very important lesson. I cannot stress on how important this lesson is because through the media, through the propaganda, we change public opinion. We move the people. We get them to wear Nike. We get them to wear Adidas. We get them to wear Polo. We get them to dislike certain groups. We get them to look at other groups as criminals, immigrants, vagabonds, or up, upward mobile members of society. So this is a very, 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 very important topic. Oh, I see the commissioner. The commissioner has decided to join us. Mr. Commissioner, please take the floor and give us some words of wisdom for the ages on this lesson of propaganda.
Yes, sir. I'm just trying to get my internet working properly, man. It's been playing up, man. So connecting and then disconnecting. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear, sir. Loud
Yes,
and
that's good.
clear.
That's good. That's good. But yes,
Yeah.
this lesson, one of my favorite again, propaganda. And I'm saying this is the machine that the European has turned us out.
Mm-hmm.
Turned us out with these propaganda. So
A-
we need propaganda to counteract propaganda.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's very important, man. It was a good. I've been tuned in. I've been listening. That was a nice touch. What you read. That's another proof of his propaganda. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
He's now calling Garvey one of the greatest con man
Con men. Can
to
you
ever walk.
imagine? Can
Yeah,
you imagine?
he's,
Jesus.
he's off of his head. I told you, this man is a maniac. This guy is tapped. But it just goes to show you that he understands. When you look at, I heard earlier on you mentioned Saddam Hussein. Then you had the Bin Laden. He's constantly, having propaganda swaying people's public opinion into one way or another. I heard you mention Africa as well, and it's for so long we've had a negative attitude towards Africa. And Malcolm X teaches that you can't have a positive attitude towards yourself and have a negative attitude towards Africa because it's an oxymoron. You are African, so if you're negative about African, you're gonna be negative. You're gonna be negative against yourself. You can't say you love the fruit of the tree but hate the tree. Yeah. So propaganda, man. Propaganda is a very important thing. We have to put out our propaganda. You know, out into these London or UK streets to win back our people because it's propaganda is that black people can't organize, black people can't get together, black people can't be trusted. And what's mad is, yeah, if anybody can't be trusted, it's not us, because we haven't really had the opportunity to be trusted. We trust other people too much, without even giving ourselves a chance to say, let's do something for self. They have us that, oh, we're just all crooks and the black people are just teeth. And, I don't know where we get this from. I know where we get this from. It's propaganda.
Propaganda. Propaganda.
You know what I mean? But,
Propaganda. Powerful.
Yeah, you know, propaganda is more dangerous than a atomic bomb, you know, if done
Absolutely,
right.
I agree.
Because an atomic bomb can just kill people. Is whoever don't die survive. But when you got the right propaganda machine, you're now influencing the mum, the father, and the child, and that will be passed on. You read the Willie Lynch letters that, you know, if implemented, this thing can go on for up to 1,000 years. You
Yeah, that
understand?
was the,
Go ahead, President General.
yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, that was the game plan. And until that old Marcus Garvey ruined everything,
Yes, sir.
it came into the scene. I remember, amongst all their different and in the case of Marcus Garvey, I don't even know if they use propaganda as much as they use proper slander, because every chance they got, they come out openly and attack him. They didn't normally. Propaganda is very deceptive, and you placing little seeds into the minds of people that make them question things by just labeling him a self-appointed leader or self-appointed president of Africa or something along that line, as if he wasn't elected at an international convention with 25,000 delegates from over 40 countries. But oh, he was self-appointed, and he was this, he was that. Du Bois didn't want to accept knighthood in the UNIA, but every time, because he didn't respect the UNIA. But when the NAACP, this little small Zionist operation, gave him a Spingarn medal, boy, he was grinning from ear to ear, salivating at the mouth. Couldn't wait to put on one of their little uniforms and caps and stand there as proud as he could be when the white man gave him a pat on the head. So, but it's somehow a black institution of millions of people want to give you a salute and honor, and you can't recognize that because you don't want to be involved with this stuff. But this is the kind of nonsense when they try to vilify Mr. Garvey, which is the reason that always like the opening of Race First. Race First is certainly one of the best efforts to produce content to question everything that the leading scholars of old had first introduced. And these people may have been scholars, but they still were propagandists, and they were still totally inaccurate. People like Ed Cronin and others. But Ed Cronin and Black Moses had a lot of assumptions in there. Mr. Garvey was this con artist, this buffoon. And Race First, when he opened up the preface, Dr. Tony Martin wrote, "This book is based on the simple premise that no one could have organized and built up the largest black mass movement in Afro-American history in the face of continuous onslaughts from communists on the left, black reactionaries on all sides, and most powerful governments in the world, and yet be a buffoon or a clown, or even an overwhelmingly impractical visionary." And if you just understand that simple premise, that if he was such a idiot and buffoon and con artist and a clown and all that, then how did he organize more than anybody else in the history of the world? I mean, Du Bois had been trying to organize a shipping line, and he failed miserably. When Mr. Garvey came up with a shipping line, all he got is a bunch of negative comments and silly things to say about it. He called the ships raggedy. Yet the very second that the ships got seized by the U.S. government, all of a sudden Du Bois is calling the writing letters to the Charles Evan Hughes of State Department, said, "Hey, man, can I get one of those ships? Why don't you say they were raggedy? Why would you want a raggedy ship? Same, you're lying to self. Same one who was trying to say one thing is realistically know the value of those ships, and they were not raggedy by any stretch of the imagination, even though they had enough people trying to throw foreign matter into the ship's engines, etc. It was a whole lot of sabotage being done, and then after they sabotage you, they want to call you a failure." Like Malcolm used to say, they bust you in the knee before a race and then blame you for losing the race or claim somehow it was your fault. But these are just a bunch of deceptive, lying, ratting folks, and that's another reason I wanted to point out that Mr. Garvey mentioned: never allow an insult propagated to go unanswered by you. Be ever vigilant to down anything by way of propaganda that dishonors or discredits you. Don't help the other fellow to carry on propaganda against yourself or your race. Or as what's the name? Uh Kanye would say, they made us hate ourselves and love their wealth. And if they can trick you in doing certain things like that, or they don't have to do anything harmful to you. you'll be their best friend and their most faithful puppy, or slave or pet or whatever they want you to be, because you're obedient to everything they put out there. So as a people, we got to have some, get some gangster about ourselves. Stand up to some of this propaganda, respond to some of this propaganda. Don't let them choose our leadership for us. Don't let them, tell us what we like and don't like. And they got all kinds of gay propaganda now, trying to make you feel ashamed to say that you're not in favor of that death style they call a lifestyle. And if you say something, you must be homophobic. You must secretly want to be gay. And now people were scared. Oh no, I'm not homophobic. How the hell you gonna be scared of a homo? I mean, how does that even make sense? If you question most of the stuff that they say that's propaganda, makes no kind of sense whatsoever. But the longer you sit there and soak it in, and the people around you don't question it, and you don't question it, you start believing all kinds of ridiculousness. So, brothers and sisters, please be ever vigilant and protect yourselves, and start putting up weapons of warfare in response to some of this propaganda war, so that we can start having our own, and be able to celebrate ourselves, our history, our relatives, our family, our future, and that we'll have a much brighter future ahead of us if we just learn this simple lesson alone is a powerful one to internalize. Read it 5, 10 times if need to. Read it every day. But we definitely need to read and absorb that Black power every hour we can. And not all this white propaganda that we've been flooded with, or Asian propaganda. Mama San can manipulate you too, and all this the black hair care and the nail salons and everything they flooding us with, to make us think we're not pretty enough, or that we need them in order to beautify ourselves, or need to wear their hair, all kinds of crazy stuff. You imagine a lion wearing a human wig. We look like a ridiculous animal. Yet somehow we want to wear horse hair and all kinds of crazy stuff, trying to look like something that we ain't. I mean, ridiculous. But propaganda will have you doing it to yourself.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 100%. The European, yeah, like Garvey said in there, the white man is a great propagandist. Yeah, but he is. I think he's this man is a master at propaganda. He's like a scientist with it. Do you get what I'm saying? Remember, yeah, Europe really doesn't have no national resources, yeah, but he uses his mind to take all of our national resources. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? And he's used his mind and took on the greatest resource, which is ourselves, to work on behalf of him. So people really need to understand what propaganda is and how they are using propaganda against us. Garvey mentions in this chapter that we must organize our propaganda to undo the propaganda of other people. They talk about black on black crime. All of that's propaganda, because you don't hear white on white crime. You just have world wars. To when white people kill white people, it's a World War One, it's World War Two, it's gonna be World War Three. But when it's black on black violence, you know,
Trident.
exactly. They've got Trident, that's out first, and
Crime
these
should
things.
just be
So,
crime.
Garvey said, never, never, ever forget that you are surrounded by the world of propaganda. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, everything is propaganda. I heard the president mention. I think he said it was a film where where the person put on these glasses and they were able to see the propaganda and everything. Where it's just a picture. Pictures tell a million words. Everywhere you look, yeah, there's some propaganda. Everywhere you look. And there's propaganda. Why do you think that they put up these things with interracial couples? That's another propaganda that they've been putting out there, and the same-sex marriages or relationships. They've been heavy on those things for the last 5 to 10 years. If you think about when we were growing up, brother Raised First, these things was not acceptable like this. Now it's so acceptable that if you meet a girl that's under the age of 25 and she don't go both ways like the traffic, you'll be like, wow, you'll probably be surprised, because now everybody going that way. Propaganda will have you doing the maddest things. It's
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
insane.
a that's a fact. That's a fact. That's a fact. So again, the media machine. Yeah, we got to counteract it with our own media and our own truth. Like because
And sorry to cut you, brother Race
you go
first.
on.
This man is so he's so good at propaganda that he will make you think he's against something here, but he's really for it. That's when you know you've mastered propaganda.
Yeah,
You think
definitely,
you think
definitely.
that you're being radical or you're going against the grain or whatever by going that way. But he just wanted you to go that way. So he made it look like he's against that so that you in your lack of knowledge thinks that well you're doing something that's benefiting yourself. But you're actually falling right into these plans. That's how great he is at propaganda. Garvey tells us, like tear from our walls all pictures that glorify other races. He even says, tear them up and burn every bit of propaganda that does not carry your idea of things. Another chapter said, take down that white woman off your wall, brothers and sisters, or brothers and sisters, take down that white man off of your walls. Replace that with a black person. I remember years and years ago, like when I was first getting into certain kind of knowledge, I had a black Jesus on my wall. There was for a time. And then I just took down the black Jesus. I don't care whether Jesus is white or black. I don't want no Jesus, but you've got to replace it until you're able to overcome it. So like they say sometimes when you're sick, the doctor will give you poison to counteract poison. But then you're gonna have to deal with the root cause of this and get the real medicine. But sometimes poison can be medicine. So a lot of people say, well, how can you be why would you become a black supremacist? Some have said to me in the past. Well, I said we have to counteract white supremacy. And in order, they tell us that everything black is bad. Well, I switch to say everything black is beautiful. And then we get to the point now where we say, yeah, some things are beautiful, that's black, and some things ain't. But you've got to go through that stage. You can't allow somebody to make you think that black is ugly. And like I heard the elder mention, angels' food cake is white and devil's food cake is black. When you look at the definition of words in the dictionary, Malcolm X in the movie, stood out in me in the movie when he was going through the dictionary, looking at all of these words and seeing how all of these words are being used against us. Everything black is negative. You wear white to weddings and you wear black to funerals. Not to say that you shouldn't. I'm just saying that it has a psychological effect on your brain. Maybe we got to wear black to weddings and white to funerals. I don't know, but this is propaganda in itself. We're living in his world. The world we're living in now is set up for him, for his advantage. When Marcus Garvey came around, this bold black man, nearly 100 and something years ago, and came with a program that would eradicate white supremacy and all of his propaganda. Look what we did to him. I remember talking to Sister Nyasha the other day, about what they've done, what our own people did. Forget anybody else. What our own people did to Mr. Garvey. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because the propaganda machine worked so well that they had them thinking that Marcus Garvey is going to sabotage all of their efforts in America. We were not realizing that he had the greatest plan for us in America and the world. It's only now some people can realize maybe Du Bois, over the years, he was able to say, you know what, maybe I was wrong, but the damage has already been done. Garvey says, have your own newspapers, your own artists.
yeah, true.
We got to have our own everything. Like, think of it. If you look at music, like, everybody, might like the R&B, maybe you may like the hip hop, you may like this, you may like that. But I'm saying, if you look at music, we do not control nothing. These people are the ones that's controlling it. Now, it's okay now for them to say kill a black person. The black woman is a B. It's fine. I would challenge you to say, all right, make a song about killing dogs, yeah, and see if you don't get yourself locked up for mentioning killing a dog. But you can go on radio and go platinum, triple platinum, you was it diamond, saying killer N-word and the black woman is a B. You're going platinum this year saying that. But say you're gonna go kill a dog in a song, a cat, you're getting locked up.
Or a Jew.
Oh, man, Yeah,
In fact, you can even sneeze on a song and say "hut you," and they're gonna accuse you of anti-Semitism. He said a Jew. He said a Jew. I mean, these people are so crazy. Particularly the Jewish folks who would like to talk about everybody, but don't want nobody talking about them. These folks are absolutely insane with that anti-Semitism propaganda, and that but they don't talk about anti-Kemitism. And when you coming after us, but everything is about them. Never again, and all this kind of stuff. That's why I don't like repeating their terminology. They're like we can only see our struggle through their eyes. We calling ourselves we suffer from the Holocaust. That's their word. That diaspora. That's their word. We having a mouth. We have our own terms and our own language, and our own heritage, and our own culture and history. So we ain't got to keep borrowing from them for anything. And oh man, they definitely had you thinking one thing and doing the opposite. They had even the WB Du Bois and the Souls of Black Folk. Once they hooked up with their good Semitic friend, Du Bois, they made him change when he reprinted Souls of Black Folks. The first edition had a criticism of the Jewish merchants who were exploiting Black people in New York and different cities. Then when he came out with part 2, they paid him to not put in their Jewish merchant and just put in merchant to keep themselves out of it. Same thing with other tools of propaganda. They want to keep themselves away from it as if they weren't guilty of all the financing and our enslavement and all sorts of other things, using their little Zionist pet Du Bois and others to do. But yeah, Du Bois was a piece of work. And just for the record, he never said he was sorry or apologized or atoned or even admitted any of the dirty, nasty stuff he did, propaganda and otherwise, against the Garvey movement. He was just an innocent victim. I never said anything about Miss Garvey. I didn't do anything. I don't know what you're talking about. Lying snake that he was, a classic propagandist move. But yeah, but I remember too when I was younger that there was when I was in the Jehovah Witness thing. I used to put up on the television a scripture from Philippines, from the book of Philippians. They read, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable. If there's anything excellent, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. And so whenever I watch certain things on television or certain shows, I skip the commercials quick or even mute them. I don't want to hear none of the stuff they had to say. But whatever these tools are that they're using, know that there's always somebody behind it who is calculating some kind of way to take advantage of you, of your ignorance, of your hunger, of your loneliness, of something in you that you need, filled, and they want to show you everything you want to see. Hey, if you try this product, you'll be cool, and everybody will be your friend. If you try this, everybody's gonna be celebrating and dancing in the streets. And if you eat this, see how that person is loving, salivating at the mouth, eating that big juicy bacon double cheeseburger with the so and so. And they got all these kinds of propaganda just flooding you with all day, every day. You can't even, fight it. Almost, it's like inundating. You feel like you been flooded in the middle of the ocean. As soon as this one come in, another one come in, another one come in. Then you look on your wall and some more is around you. Then you turn the radio on and they got more propaganda. So anyway, Mr. Garvey pointed out that what would help sometimes is to ask, what is this propaganda about? When this person, commercial imagery, anything, music, what is the message, direct and indirect message? What can you take from it? Be very discerning and keen in observing what their mission is. Not only to buy, certain things, but to make you feel a certain way. To make you, imagine certain things. This is trickery. It's like they used to say, if I tell you for right now, for the next 5 seconds, I want you to think nothing but about a teddy bear. And just focus on the teddy bear. Close your mind. Just think teddy bear, teddy bear. See images of teddy bear, teddy bear, teddy bear, teddy bear, teddy bear. And then I tell you, okay, for the next 10 seconds, don't think about a teddy bear. You're going to think about a teddy bear, because that's what propaganda does. It plays with your mind. It makes you think you're in control. And, folks still be thinking about teddy bear 3-4 minutes later, 3-4 hours later, 3-4 days later. whatever other, thing you tell them not to do or whatever. So I mean, anyway, it's a powerful tool. It can be used against you, but it also can be taken from your enemy and used against them, as well as used for us. So being mindful of proper propaganda is certainly a credit. If we can master that art and skill, as the most honorable Marcus Garvey did.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Just to add on to that and what I was saying before, adding the quote in the actual lesson, it says the idea of the white man making black a symbol of mourning and sadness is just to show the extreme of the purity of the whiteness and its joy and happiness. Reverse this. If possible, teach the Negro that when he is mourning, he should wear white, and when he is happy, to wear black. This is meeting propaganda with propaganda. The hatchet with the hatchet, the stick with the stick, and the stone with the stone. Everything on earth is man's creation. So out of man's propaganda and mind, he has created his special system of opinions to meet his design. This is what Garveyism is. Garvey created propaganda to counteract the propaganda that was given to us. And it was a beautiful propaganda. They say there's no glory in pain, There isn't. But Garvey taught us that chances never satisfy the suffering people. We got to go out there and get it if we're going to get it. And if we're not going to go out there and get it, we just ain't getting it. And if you look at what we've been doing in history recently, we've got nothing because we haven't been going out there and getting it. We've been sucked into their propaganda of individualism. So now we don't even want a community no more. We just want to make sure that our household is taken care of, maybe, and that should be enough. When reality is that ain't gonna be enough, brothers and sisters. Nobody works like that. Everybody, by nature, if you look at all right, let me try reword it differently. If you look at nature, most animals roll. Like you see the lions together, you see the zebras together, you see the hyenas rolling in packs, you see bluebirds flying with bluebirds, you see red birds flying with red birds, you see the white pigeon, they call a dove, but the white pigeon flying with white pigeons. So I'm saying everything in nature rolls together. So why now, as human beings, or wherever people want to call us, we now want to roll separate, knowing that we're never going to get anywhere with this individualness that they've been giving us. We're not going to accomplish anything. And then when we're going to want a community, we're going to complain, where is the community? But you didn't help to establish this community, brothers and sisters. This community that we're talking about needs to be re-established over here in London in order for us to benefit from the togetherness of our people. We've mentioned in the other chapter where Garvey was saying, if possible, we should try and move and live together. That way we have more power if we're all in the same area. He's scattered us. So now we're individual. Like we don't have no power. Brixton used to be ours. Brixton ain't ours no more. Dawson used to be ours. Harsden used to be ours. Tottenham used to be ours. It's not ours anymore, brothers and sisters. We've let propaganda run amok in our house. But, Garvey said we must meet propaganda with propaganda, brothers and sisters. So the Unia is going to start back the propaganda and have the propaganda machine working 24/7, because that's the only way to clear our minds. We need a brainwash. Yes, sir. We need to wash our brain. We need to detox ourselves from the doctrine that they've given us.
Well, that's why it's called the School of African Philosophy. It's called SOAP. We will cleanse our brains and fight fire with hellfire, as they used to say. But yeah, absolutely agree with you on those things. It's about content creation. It's about us coming together and doing what we have to do to inspire that literature, that poetry. Mr. Garvey was a master when it came to poet. He didn't think himself a great poet, but he had some jewels in there along the way. The black woman and all the tragedy of white injustice. Oh my goodness! I mean, the things that he inspired, certainly with the Marleys and the jazz and even some hip hop and others over the years. And we're working on some content in the UNIA. There's some projects coming up,
Yes, sir.
films, music, books, even museum exhibits. Because pictures are worth thousands of words, and we want to flood the planet again with some true unadulterated Garveyism. So it's coming. You'll see it. Let it take control. Let it get into your soul and be a part of you. And yeah, definitely, I just wanted to make that comment.
Yes, sir. And I'm with you. I can't wait. People are looking forward to it. Next year, ancestors willing, is going to be a great year for the UNIA. I'm happy to be a part of it. I've got some things myself forward in next year. We've got something me and the President General is working on. Hopefully, we'll launch that in the near
Okay, what
future.
is that? What is that? Inquiring minds would like to know.
We're working on starting our podcast. So
Absolutely.
we're gonna start filming hopefully this week, and then
Absolutely.
we'll have that ready for the near future. I think that we're just gonna record a few, have the first season done before we start advertising it, so that we can build a momentum, and it
Mm-hmm.
be supported by the community. But
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna be a powerful podcast. I'll tell you that.
And
You know,
pollinate the airways with propaganda of the
Y-
race first,
that's it.
nationhood, and all that good stuff.
Yes, that's it. That's doing what
Yes.
we do best. Doing
Mm-hmm.
what we do best. And obviously, I got the book. You know,
Absolutely.
that book there, like from the one that I sent to you, brother Ray's first at that time, is 100%. No, not 100. It's about 80% different. I got some more powerful speeches in there that I had to type up. You know what I
Okay,
mean?
you've been digging in them big red books, them pink books. You've been
I
digging
have.
in those books.
I've been searching for the diamonds and the gold, beloved.
All right, you've been mining. You've been
I've been
mining.
mining and I've been minding my business. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes,
So,
sir. Yes.
if everything goes well, I think that book, in terms of just the speeches in it, should be a book that all UNIA members across the world should have. Like the Muslims got their Quran and the Christians got their Bible. We should have a book with Garvey's speeches. And if I could do it, I would make it on, like them old school Bible papers, the thin papers and the black leather leather front with gold.
Absolutely.
I would do it like that, but I'm struggling to source the it might not be cost effective to do
Hey,
it.
hey, hey, hey. Donations, donations.
The cash
A
app,
little
hit the
makes a
cash app.
lot. You know what I'm saying? You know what
But
I'm
I
saying?
think I
Come
think
to
that
your
would be
brother.
I think that would be a beautiful touch. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
To have it on like them the Bible papers. Do you know what I mean? It's, people have to use, like the Jews, they got like a stick here that they turn the page with. These mouth, they don't even cuss
Mm-hmm.
no words on the Sunday. But these people are funny, but we should have the book in high regards. Do you know what I'm saying? Just like religious people have their book in high regards, we should have the words of Garvey in a high regards, and we should treat it according to it as well. You know what I mean? So that's the only reason why I was thinking along the lines of the paper and the leather case and things.
Scriptures.
Yes,
Yes.
these scriptures that Garvey was dropping, them gems that Garvey was dropping. Is there's one of a kind.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
they're,
Absolutely.
they're sacred. They
The-
demand deference. I was thinking the same thing when I first started putting one of the books I was doing together. I said, I'm gonna put this, on the leather, like you say, with the gold trim pages and the little tassel hanging out, and
Yes, sir.
I want this something that, boy, you gotta pray like 20 not by mites if you drop this book on the ground. And say,
Mhm.
no, don't you, this is sacred. You put this somewhere in the house, you keep the light on at 24 hours, children be wondering, can I read it again, mom? Can I read it? This is the book of all books. This is your Bible. So yeah, this is a holy document. And yeah, it should be read and taken care of and revered like that. So yeah, we got to cultivate that kind of respect and appreciation for what we value. That too is part of the propaganda war.
Yes, 100%. 100%. There's nothing, we mentioned the propaganda, even with our children or grandchildren to some, just having, a picture of Garvey in your house, these like the youths are gonna ask, who is that, daddy? Why have you got? Is that they're gonna inquire about these things, and you don't know what effect that's gonna have on the child, because when they have the images of the other things on the wall, we understand the impact that has on them. They start becoming dissatisfied with their own people. You know
Yeah.
how we are as a people. We take on everything. Anytime we're very extreme as a people. We start two kickers. We go to one Wing Chun class. Now we start by the Chinese. We start by the Chinese clothes. We get the Chinese slippers. We start eating with chopsticks. We start when I want to eat Chinese food. Like we're doing the most. We turn Muslim now. We want to wear the Arab clothes. We start eating the
Yes,
Arab man
indeed.
food.
Yes,
And
indeed.
we change our name. We start talking funny now. Assalamu alaikum, Aki. We change the way
So
we
we
talk
we
now.
we wrapping up now, brothers and sisters.
Yes, indeed, we're wrapping up. But we change the way we talk. We change everything when we're doing things because we're very extreme. But let's now use that same extremeness.
Hello.
Can you not hear me?
Oh yeah.
Okay, now I saw Baba Ray's first talking. I thought I was talking to myself.
No, 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 no. I was going to say like we've passed the 2 hour mark
Yeah, now
now.
we can wrap up. I mean, let's finish this point and we can wrap it
Okay,
up.
okay, okay, okay. What's the point? What's the
The
point?
point is that we're very extreme people. Yeah, we do
Mm-hmm.
everything fully. Yeah, we look at the sisters with the weaves, they're doing it, they're doing the madness, different colors, the nails, they're very flamboyant. Some of the brothers like to dress and we do things extremely. So I'm saying let's do Garveyism extreme.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now let me ask you one.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you one question. President Race first. Is it true your nickname in high school was Bruce Leroy?
Catching bullets with his teeth. We were catching bullets with his teeth and that.
You catch
Oh no, show
showing
God.
up.
I said,
Yeah, Shogun. Yes.
yeah, that was a great movie. I
Uh-huh.
like
I have
Bruce
the
Leroy.
power. I
Yo,
have the
Gallo had the
power.
soul glow as well.
Yeah,
Man,
the soul
yeah,
glow. I feel it.
well, oh man. Yes, sir. But yo, we can wrap it up now anyway, brother Race first. You know what I'm saying? We can say your last words and we let our President General lead us out in peace and glory.
I just want to say to the essence of propaganda, because it's a powerful lesson. They've all been powerful lessons, but this in particular on the brainwashing and the manipulation, like Marcus Messiah Garvey was so ahead of his time. Visualization, all black everything. It just needs to be all black everything and at the highest height of height. And when we're walking this road, it just needs to be black excellence. Black excellence is all I want to see. And with that note, I'm gonna leave it to our President General, who's ever so eloquent, to close it with a prayer.
Yes, indeed. Well, let me recite this one statement by Mr. Garvey, then close out. And I thank everybody for coming on board and everybody who's listening. And don't forget, the UNIA is not just talking; we walking. We trying to build and grow and recruit. And we need Lottie, Dottie, and everybody to come on board and join the association.
Yes,
So,
sir.
with that being said, Mr. Garvey once said, I thought it was quite important. There is a well organized propaganda and conspiracy engineered by a combination of forces, known and unknown, seen and unseen, in the USA and different parts of the world to undermine the powerful influence of the UNIA in uniting Negroes everywhere. The propaganda and conspiracy is being conducted, on the one hand, by some of our one time slave masters who have never been able to outlive the idea that the Negro should be anything else but a slave. And on the other hand, by a cheap, brainless, conscienceless, treacherous, this loyal brand of Negro reprobates who, like traitors of all causes, national, secular, and religious, are ever willing to sell themselves for 30 dirty pieces of silver. May we protect ourselves from all these sorts of reprobates, Jake and apes, and every other kind of, you know, creep out there that's trying to blind us to our own best interests. May we hold dear to the gospel of Garveyism. And I close with the chaplain's prayer of the association. Not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord of hosts. God of the right, our battles fight. Be with us as of yore. Break down the barriers of might, we reverently implore. Stand with us in our struggles for the triumph of the right. Spread confusion ever o'er the advocates of might. And let them know that righteousness is mightier than sin. That might is only selfishness and cannot, ought not win. Endow us, Lord, with faith and grace and courage to endure the wrongs we suffer here apace, and bless us evermore. One God, one
One
aim,
God, one aim,
One aim,
one destiny.
one
one
destiny.
destiny.
Absolutely. The pillars of the foundation.